Welcome, guys, to another episode. Today's round is going to be on rapid fire, and we're going into how to build your war chest. Your war chest is essentially your savings for those dark times. Let's say if you have a family, whatever the situation may be, but just having something where you can rely on some money, some cash, something accessible, something that is liquid.
So number one thing is basically your emergency funds, like what Neil talked about, right? Recession hits tomorrow, anything that could happen. Essentially, you have to first understand what is that window that you're looking at. So for myself, when I look at emergency funds, I'm looking at how do I build wealth for the next 12 months in a way that I can comfortably live without doing anything. Second is, what are some other sources of income that you can actually build for that future?
The problem is the thing that we have been trained to bring stability. Investing in property has been one of the best investments for the longest time. The problem is, I was thinking, well, look, I'm living in this beautiful house. Let's say, for example, 5 million in here, Danish krona. Dude, if a war starts out, no one is going to buy houses. Then all of the money that you're investing into it out of a sudden disappears.
My approach is to not fixate on that, but anticipate for anything to happen and plan for anything to happen.
Having that cushion gives you the confidence to be optimistic. It's very easy for people to say, just leave your job and start doing something great, but it's not the easiest thing in the world, right? Like, you need some cushion to make sure that, yes, you can support your family, yes, you can support your lifestyle, but simultaneously, you can dream bigger as long as you have that cushion. And that's the mentality that I subscribe to.
Welcome, guys, to another episode. Today's round is going to be on rapid fire, and we're going into how to build your war chest. Your war chest is essentially your savings for those dark times. Let's say if you have a family, even if you're solo, whatever the situation may be, but just having something where you can rely on some money, some cash, something accessible, something that is liquid. Whether you need to move countries, whether there's a recession, whether there's an emergency, someone gets sick, knock on wood. But this is super important for a man, as your family relies on you, as the leader of the family. So I think this is something that comes into your mind as you get older as well. But no matter what age you have or you're at right now, it's something that should be covered, and you should start accumulating and developing that plan as soon as possible, right? So the old saying of the best time to plant a tree, right? Like 10 years ago or today. So if you haven't already started, you start now. So I'm curious, how do you guys approach this? Let's start with Rafe.
Yeah, so for me, first of all, you need to understand what is the cost of living that you have month on month, right? So I look at, okay, if I'm spending this month on this much on average per month, how much would I spend on, in 6 months, in 1 year? So that is what my base cost of living is, right? That is the base. Now, for me, I always look at saving my money in that way, right? So number one thing is basically your emergency funds, like what Neil talked about, right? Recession hits tomorrow, COVID hits again, anything that could happen, which could, just make you not be able to make that money. And there could be a million other things. But essentially, you have to first understand what is that window that you're looking at. So for myself, when I look at emergency funds, I'm looking at how do I build wealth for the next 12 months in a way that I can comfortably live without doing anything. So I look at multiplying that cost of living per month into 12, and then let's say that amount is $100,000. Okay, I'm exaggerating it. My cost of living is not that much, but just to simplify it, let's say if it's $100,000, I have to make sure that month on month, I save a certain amount of money to get to that 100,000 first. So that would be my emergency fund. And I'm like, okay, to get there, I have to accumulate $10,000 for 10 months. Great. And once I have done that, that is my emergency fund. Now, second layer of funding that I look at is how do I invest in my future, right? If push comes to shove, God forbid, anything happens, I have my emergency fund lying there. But if I want to invest in my future, which can make me financially independent, what is that? So I always look at how do I multiply my streams of income. And I have started doing it, if in the past 12 months. I was not doing that before. I wish I could. But I started, right? So one of the biggest things is I invest in the stocks. and I invest in especially those companies which I'm aware of, and I know that they have great founders and great standing. And I know that my cash lying in my bank is never going to be that valuable than buying a stock, because it's always growing in value. Like if you look at the last 10 years, the companies who I'm talking about, if you just look at their value from the past 10 years, they have grown, and they are also adjusted with inflation. So great, you're not wasting your money just getting it to sit in the bank. So that's number one. Second is, what are some other sources of income that you can actually get to actually build for that future? So I do multiple other things on the side whilst working for a stable job. So at the moment, emergency fund and building for the future are two things that are pillars for me, and which makes me comfortable because my family depends on me, my partner, and of course she has her own job, but I want to make sure as a man that I provide and I don't ask her for that. Yeah, these are my two main points. I will pass back to Neil.
Yeah. So I'm gonna focus more on the now than later on, right? Like if something happens now, how do you prepare for that and get liquid as soon as possible? So Ali mentioned something interesting, which is if there were to be a crisis or something, and he needs to move his family out of Denmark, let's say, like it would be ideal to have 20, 30 grand just sitting there waiting in case of emergency, that you can just access and start your life somewhere and give you enough time to figure things out, right? So for me, like, no, it's even more important because I have a family, right? I have a family to support, and I need to make sure that that is there. So I mean, the good old savings account and just letting that sit there, I think for me is one of the approach. But I think it comes down to discipline, and your spending habits, your lifestyle, all of these things. So if it takes temporarily a compromise in you not doing lavish things, let's say, or not going on a trip, or cutting back on how much you go out or eat out or something like that, like wherever you can save to get to your desired amount. So I would say having enough to at least get you through 4 months, you, your family, if you have dependents, all of this, you need to have that just sitting there, because you never know what can happen. It doesn't need to be cash, it doesn't need to be money in the bank. Sometimes if you can liquidate, if you have stocks that are constant and steady, not the things that go up and down, whether it's crypto as well, something that is not as volatile. Like even if you want to put money in crypto, it doesn't need to be any coins or tokens. It can just be USDC or USDT, which pegs to the US dollar. So the benefit about this is that you can access this anywhere in the world. You don't need a bank or anything, so it's more easy to move around in case of crisis and all of this. Now, I mean, there's the instance of the dollar losing value, and this will go down as well, right? So this is not none of this is investing advice, but I think to wrap it up, the main thing is having it in one way or the other. In case of emergency, in case something happens, what the hell do you do? And you need to always be prepared as a man, as a leader of a family. Like I said, if you have dependents, even if you're alone, like you need to have a backup plan. You need to have a plan B. And if you're living, let's say, paycheck to paycheck, if you're in debt, for example, you should prioritize, first of all, to eliminate debt, I would say. That's my approach. Again, this is not investing advice, but I would always go for that, to eliminate that, because it's more than just about the finances and the money. It's about your mental state as well, because when you're in debt, like if you've ever experienced that, you would know that that just looms over your head. For years I had that, right? Like when I was much younger, and then I worked like day and night to get rid of that. Then when I did get rid of it, I was like, I'm never ever gonna put myself in that again. But then there's the flip side to it, which is if you become really wealthy and you know how to leverage debt, for example, you can live the rest of your life on debt because you have money, you have assets and stuff. So you don't need to think about money by then, right? Like, for example, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, all these guys, they live on debt because they have assets. They don't really go cash heavy. So they pay less taxes and stuff. And then technically they're owing money at all point in time. Any bank will lend them money because they have millions and billions in assets, right? So they know how to leverage that. But that's a different game when you're at that level. For the average man out there, I think it is important to clear that off and then have your reserves. So whether you want to do gold coins like Ali or stocks like Rafe or cash, you just need to have something. So that's my take on it. What do you think, Ali?
So we initially started this conversation because as soon as I think yesterday, as late as yesterday, I actually had that thought, thinking about what's happening in the US, and it seems like the election is going in a very clear direction, which definitely will affect. I'm looking into the Middle East and whatever is happening in there. I think the view I had on it was more of it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. And the problem is you don't bet your horses on, for example, the USD, and you actually don't know. It has been, the problem is the thing that we have been trained to bring stability, even if it's gold, even if it's like property, even if it is the USD or you actually don't know, because if any war starts at some point of time, the currency will go like this. Investing in property has been one of the best investments for the longest time. The problem is I was thinking about, look, I'm living in this beautiful house. Let's say, for example, 5 million in here, Danish krona. Dude, if a war starts out, no one is going to buy houses. Then all of the money that you're investing into it out of a sudden disappears. And I was like thinking, literally, what would it take for me if a war or any shit happens tomorrow, because I'm responsible for my family, what am I going to be doing? And that's a real question. The thing that is very hard in here that we also need to acknowledge is the balance between, do you live in a fear state? And that fear state, by the way, can be for the next 10 years. It can be for the next 15 years. But then those years are gone. So do you always plan for the worst, or do you actually just live in the now? Because I'm like, okay, for example, I would love to upgrade my car to something that's nice because I would love to do that. But on the other side, I'm like, should I ever do that? Or should I just invest in a fear for future? And I am in that balance at this point of time. That's a very hard thing. Should I invest in the now because I really don't know what tomorrow brings? Or should I keep investing in a fearful scenario that is not coming to reality yet? And listen, I don't have an answer for it. It's still being baked in my mind, but I totally agree on having an emergency fund and figure out what is the minimum that I need if I move to Spain, if I move to Bali, if I move to Malaysia, if I move to South America, or I move to Africa. What would it take for me to open a mini shop and start my life there? But that also comes from another thing is you can, and I think very important is to train yourself. And again, I don't know how to do it in a way so you don't get programmed to just be a fearful person. I think you need to be toughened. But how is it that you get tough without really programming yourself to being in a state of fear?
Yeah.
I don't know it. And if you have any point, please share it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's about fear. I think it's about being a realist. Like, who would think that in Europe there would be a war in 2024? Look at the situation there. Look at the Middle East right now. Like you said, like election time is crazy right now in the US. Like, there's so much uncertainty, and there will always be. There has always been. So the ones who make it through these times are the ones who actually plan, right? And there's always going to be changing events in the world and everything. But I would my approach is to not fixate on that, but anticipate for anything to happen and plan for anything to happen. So I don't get sucked into anything. Like, there was when there was lockdowns, when there was now there's war, and like there's always something. So do what you can, what is in your control to actually get things ready in case something goes on. And it's not about being pessimist, but it's about being a realist, as I said there. So yeah, I think that is my take on it.
I think there's something that's very important that I've been listening, but again, I think that's why I'm also trying to be self-critical, because I don't want to put myself in a box that I some later on cannot come out of. And I think because I'm listening to the ebook of Letting Go by Dr. Hawkins, and I think what is very beautiful in here is the only reality that is that you live in is the one that you subscribe to. So if you subscribe to that, this is a polar crisis where we live in, a time of uncertainty, shit is going to go down. The challenge is it actually becomes your reality. So I think it is how to be, as you said, having a realistic foundation, but still be an optimist and think about those because opportunities will open up. So I think this is the balance I'm trying to strike at this point of time of still keeping the optimism, think about the best, because even in time of war, there are actually people who make good time out of it. And even though it's a crisis, but still, as you said, prepare yourself. And an additional point that I will add in here is the power of a network. Because I remember Ken Honda, he said, if I lose all of my money, so Ken Honda is one of the authors of Mind Valley, behind the book called Heavy Money. And I think what he said that really was fascinating is, if I lose all of my money today, tomorrow I will be able to stand off my legs, not because of the money, but because of the net worth, which is the network that I have. Everyone will be able to borrow me, let's say, for example, 100, 200, 300K, that I can start a business and come up again. And I think this is something that's very important in here. How do we also have a network that can support us? But I think, guys, let me know what you see, because I think you have to jump off in a 2 minutes, right? Yeah. And I'm happy to, let's wrap it up. Mental toughness, the security fund or the emergency fund, and then the importance of network, and then in hard times, being alone is fucked up.
Yeah, so I'll just add on to that, because I feel like having that cushion gives you the confidence to be optimistic. That's what my take is, because I feel like if you don't have that cushion, you are really playing on fields which might not work in your advantage, because essentially you're taking a lot of risks, right? And taking that risk, you can take bigger risk, which will have a bigger return if you have something to fall onto. So it's very easy for people to say, just leave your job and start doing something great, but it's not the easiest thing in the world, right? Like, you need some cushion to make sure that yes, you can support your family, yes, you can support your lifestyle, but simultaneously you can dream bigger as long as you have that cushion. And that's the mentality that I subscribe to, because I'm an optimist, and I feel like, for me, everything is about optimism, because as long as you're not looking into the next big step, you're really just there and not growing. And that's the idea that I subscribe to. And for me to have that, I need to make sure that I have that base set, and then I can take those bigger decisions and invest on things that we just talked about. Can we hire the best people in social media? Can we hire this? And that only comes in with the confidence if you can provide 3 times of food and the lifestyle. Otherwise, if you don't, then you will always be hand to mouth. And I think that is a very dangerous idea to be subscribed to.
Excellent point. Love it.
Agreed. So to wrap it up, I would say let's make it visual, right? Like, having that savings, having this backup is like being on a boat with a life vest on for you and your family. And the water may be calm, but you don't know when that storm is going to roll in. And if shit goes south, you at least you're wearing those life vests, and it gives you enough time to get rescued or whatever the case may be. And rescuing, as Ali said, it may be your network, it may be taking a loan from your friend, whatever it may be, but at least you have something built up that would help and keep you not in survival mode, but in thriving mode, as Rafi said, as an optimist. So I think we covered some really, really solid points there. It goes beyond the money. It goes beyond just you anticipating, but having a network as well, I think is an amazing point there. And I think with that, we can wrap up today's episode. And please let us know what you think about this format. Is more faster, more rapid fire, as I mentioned in the beginning, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you.